All right, Jamieson, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today on the GTM Pack podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, and the power of LinkedIn, really, right? I'm doing PLG for the first time, right,
Mhm.
with my startup Asset Mule, and I had a question out, about ICPs and PLG and targeting different personas, and
Yeah.
just threw it out there into the LinkedIn world, and suddenly I get this message from you, founder of LogMeIn. You've sort of done PLG at scale, right? I
Mm.
think you've sort of ridden the PLG wave to tens of millions of users, 100 million in ARR. Reaching out to me, offering to jump on a call and give me advice, and you were kind enough to spend some time with me and learn a little bit about our business and share your experience
Mhm.
as a founder and as a product marketer. And I just thought your expertise was so valuable. We just had to get you on the podcast. So again, really appreciate you reaching out and then taking the time today to share your wisdom with our audience here.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. No, it's my pleasure, and it's exciting. I love getting involved with any kind of PLG and anything I can do to just build a community of people that we can all help each other. It's just it's a big it takes a village to raise a product, so it's always good to be able to
Absolutely.
exchange ideas.
Absolutely. Well, for those that aren't familiar with you and your background, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into product marketing, how you came to found LogMeIn, and join all the great companies that you've worked with, and then we can kind of dive into a couple of things that I'd love to pick your brain on here today.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Well, as you said, as a founder of LogMeIn, and that was actually the start of getting into product marketing. I grew up in Canada in a small town, Nova Scotia. My parents are British, so we traveled a lot as kids. So I always went around. But something that always stuck with me is every job I had was always an entrepreneur, either myself or working with one, because it's just small businesses in a small town, waiter, bartender, whatever. My experience, it took me to Budapest, Hungary, where I started my career in sales. I was working for a newspaper called the Budapest Business Journal. It was American owned, and they needed people to sell advertising. I was living in London because my parents are British. I had this passport and went to Budapest. I'd never been to Hungary, did not speak Hungarian, never sold advertising, don't even know if they really knew what advertising was. I thought, what can go wrong? I'll just figure this out. Went and loved it. And that is where I met all the people that we worked to start LogMeIn. Now, it was a few years later. And in fact, LogMeIn was the second company I built from zero to IPO with this group of founders from that we met in Hungary. Most of them were American, but we had a template of the tech was done in Hungary, and we moved the company to the US. First with LogMeIn, when we started, I was VP of sales. And then when we launched LogMeIn free, I got into product marketing, because what excited me most was dealing with consumer product that eventually we moved to enterprise, but figuring out that aha moment. And then just testing, because we had such high velocity, we could just hypothesize, what if we messaged this? What if we did this? What if we priced it like this? And just tested. And this iteration was so exciting. And that to me was just the birth of product marketing for me, sort of lit that fire. But it was a lot based on sales. We grew LogMeIn to 22 million free users. We had 100 million ARR converted from that. Then we launched Join Me. We also launched some more enterprise products, but it was always about that customer, understanding them, and that high velocity. That was my first start. That was LogMeIn. It was exciting. We went through to the IPO in 2009, launched Join Me, and then I left based on the encouragement of our VCs that backed us because of what I had done, and a gentleman named Sean Ellis, who wrote a book, Growth Hacking, with Morgan Brown. I worked with Sean for many, many years, but based on the experience there, the VCs that backed LogMeIn had a number of other companies and said, hey, do you want to be a consultant and just start going into these companies, planning to go to market, learning the products, find out how to, create, if there's a premium opportunity, what do we do? So I did that for a number of years, and then joined back into the realm of more formal product marketing roles. But I've always been either the first product marketer in, as the company that I just was at, Advisor 360, which is a big enterprise play for financial advisors, or the first product marketer for a new product launch, company 8x8 that I was at for several years, which is a cloud-based communications company. We launched a free meeting product which was both for enterprise and for individuals. Again, it was part of the PLG, so then sales-led growth. Exciting thing about that was we launched it in 2020. And in the first 3 months, we had 250,000 free users on our platform. It was great. And then 4 weeks later, April 2020, we had 25 million free users. And we had to figure out how to monetize that to get the cover the cost of it. But COVID hit, and it just took off. We rivaled Zoom on feature to feature. It was an exciting time on figuring these things out. But my career in product marketing has always been about figuring out the hard problems. And when I think back to where's that come from, because a lot of times it's agnostic to what the product does, although most of the ones have been productivity. But it goes back to when I was a kid growing up in this town in Canada, as an overweight kid, people picked on me. I always had something to prove. My parents put me into a swim team to help me lose weight. And from there, I excelled. I did really well when no one expected me to. But as I got older, it became harder to keep up that momentum. And I chose the hardest swimming events there are. 400 IM, if you knew swimming, 1,500 meter freestyle, because no one else did them. And they were hard. I did not mind hard work, and I always had something to prove. Went all through university, a little bit beyond with swimming. But ever since then, going into the working world, I've always been, what are the hard problems? How do we solve them? What's the unknown? I'm comfortable without a playbook. That has just been me my whole life and career. And product marketing has been the best place for that.
Wow. What a journey. What a story. I was going to ask you, I talk a lot about how my sales background, I think, really led to me being a strong product marketer, especially one that focused on sales enablement and supporting sales teams, and how both my sales and product marketing experience really helps now that I'm a founder. And, with you in a similar path, I was going to get your perspective on that. Now there's a new layer in there where I actually was a competitive tennis player, and same as you, I really took the hard road and wanted to challenge myself. I left home at a young age and went full time at a tennis academy in Florida, wanting to push myself to the limit. And I think that as well is somewhere deep ingrained in me of like wanting to start my own company, wanting to do it, bootstrapped, right? And do it sort of the hard way and really, roll up the sleeves and not cover those problems with money or other means, but really try and figure them out at the foundation of the company. But I guess my question, so you've kind of talked a little bit about that piece and how it's influenced your career, but maybe getting back to like sales and product marketing, and then becoming a founder, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think that sales is a great background for product marketing? Do you think that both of these are solid backgrounds for and came in useful when you founded these companies?
Absolutely. I mean, sales, when you think about product marketing, it really is like sales at scale, because it all has to do with one thing, the customer, and how that's going to relate to the product and the problems that you solve. Being in sales, first in my career, be comfortable with people. That's the thing. I mean, when you think of product marketing, it's about the go-to-market strategies, about creating collateral, but all of that is based on, or should be, conversations with customers, getting them to open up. And the thing that you're sort of trained at, or if you have that sales instinct, is listening to customers as they're speaking about their problems and watching them when you talk about your solutions, and just look for that aha moment. And what you'll notice when you talk to a number of people is it's the same moment. Then you've now discovered something. That's the aha moment. Sales is what trains you for that. And talking to customers, you have to be super comfortable. A lot of people aren't. If you can still be a great product marketer as long as you have someone you work with that can talk to these customers. But sales has always been that, and understanding how do customers buy, what are their the aha moment, prescribing a path in product-led growth to that, and having figure out how can I get the product to do the talking for me, because I can't call 1,000 people. Tried doing that at LogMeIn when we first launched free, but finding ways to talk with the product, get the product to talk for you. Again, it was all sales. As there's a lot more momentum into going from product-led growth to sales-led growth within organizations, or just starting as a B2B, one of the things you have to realize is you have to understand the buying process, because a lot of the messaging is going to be to users on how exciting and great this product is for the job they're doing. But more in enterprise, you also have to speak to buyers. And there's an entire process you have to understand to be good at product marketing. You're getting out the go-to-market strategy, showing the positioning, the messaging, what it is your product does. But the buying process is often overlooked. Understanding the process that your sales team goes through. How do you support them with the right messaging at the right time? How do you segment the market? Because customers, they buy on pain points. And yeah, you may have a product that solves 5 things or 10 things really well. Customers are only looking to solve one problem. And if you can solve that, lead with that. So being able to isolate the problems, again, it took a sales mentality to understand you have to speak differently to different people. And I see that is where product marketing is going, is looking at various ICPs and then various personas within that and having to address messaging to each of those. It becomes quite a matrix. But if you have that mindset, you can easily grasp that and get it.
Yeah, and it's funny as you were talking. I remember the way that I got into product marketing is I was at a company for 10 years, and I had been the first salesperson, and then sort of built out a sales development team, and in that process built a lot of trust with the founder CEO. And when our market started to explode in terms of competitors and so on, he felt we needed a product marketer, and he sort of came to me with, hey, I think you'd be the perfect first product marketer, just knowing tackling tough problems, right? Kind of building a role for yourself, but also because of your sales background. And I was kind of like, why me? Like, I don't know what product marketing is. I've never done marketing before. Like, why would I be a good fit for this? But that was kind of the moment when you said product marketing is sales at scale, right? When I realized that, that's when I actually got rid of my imposter syndrome. And I was like, wow, actually, I think I'm well suited for this. And ever since then, whenever I'm doing something in product marketing, whether it be, writing some copy or thinking about a positioning and messaging or working on our website, I'm using my sales experience, right? I'm thinking about the buyer, them landing on our page. What are the things that are going to resonate with them, right? I'm putting myself in their shoes and trying to capture their attention, poke at those pain points that they have, right? And again, I don't know that if I didn't come from a sales background and I hadn't done those, hundreds of demos, right, where you're kind of trying to test out messaging and see what sort of gets people to the aha moment. I don't know if I didn't have that experience, I don't know that I'd be thinking about it in that way, right? So it's so true that sales experience and putting yourself in the buyer's shoes is such a strength, I think, when it comes to product marketing. Another question I have for you. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing PLG for the first time, right? And starting to realize, there are actually some differences when it comes to product marketing in PLG versus SLG. I'm curious, as somebody that's had a ton of success in PLG, but also has done the other side of the coin, how do you think about that difference between a product marketer and what they're doing in a more of a PLG organization? Like, what type of product marketer are you looking for? What does their day look like? What are their responsibilities? What's their mindset versus if you're hiring a product marketer, let's say for an SLG company, what's the difference? What's their mindset? And, what does their role look like? I'm curious what that difference looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with product-led growth, you're really looking at how can the product sell itself in a lot of ways. The product marketer for that needs to really engage customers to find out what is the pain point that we solve. What are the bigger commonalities? Because it's going to be harder to isolate and target because you're just having one, big mechanism to get your messaging out. But also in product-led growth, you're doing a lot. Growth is the key term there. You need people to engage and adopt your product, which means you're going to have to interface a lot more with engineering to build things into the product that are going to help you get that message across. A very prescribed path of what happens is the moment someone downloads the product. What's the aha moment, and how can you get there as fast? And you really need to ask the engineers for help on that. I wouldn't go to them and tell them, hey, you need to do this, but present them with the problems. They're great problem solvers, and say, how can we get that aha moment to surface as fast as possible so the product gets there? And the key, again, with product-led growth is it's all about delighting the customer with an amazing experience. And what better way to do that by offering all the paid features that are relevant for a customer, and let them get habituated to it during that trial. So the product marketer there has to look at, when is the point that we're going to say, okay, trial's over, you're going to lose those things. Loss is an amazing motivator to keep something. Whereas, we learned price is only, relevant in the absence of value. If you're able to provide that value on product-led growth, provide that experience, and then say, okay, now we have to pay for it, the person's not going to look at it as paying for something. They're giving something up. They're keeping something of value, and it just costs a little bit of money, but they're able to do so much. The decision's also made by that user. They can actually have their own ROI that's good for them. Maybe it's working faster. Maybe it's doing things better quality. Maybe it's spell checking if you're using AI right now, something like Grammarly. But when you get into now the sales-led momentum, it gets much more complicated, because you're relying on products helping users adopt and having an automated process. Now, product-led is super important when you're going into enterprise and more sales-led, because the product needs to be easy to use and adopt. So you can't lose sight of that. But you're now dealing with users, buyers, and a sales team. So in product marketers, you now have 3 constituents to speak to, and each of those subdivide a bit more. The users make sure you're solving the problems, that you're communicating what they should be doing, and giving them an amazing experience that can be rolled out and adopted. But then when you're dealing with the buyers, they have to justify the expense of this. They need to come up with an ROI that's measurable across everyone they're buying for. A big thing, now we see AI is, pretty much in everything. But I think one of the big myths is selling productivity. That, it's going to make everyone more productive. Well, I'm yet to find the bank where I can take the 1 million hours the company claims to have saved and cash that in for money. It doesn't work that way. Making people more productive, it is ideal, but what do they do with that time that they're now able to have? B players just finish their day, or A players will probably do something of more value. But for the buyer, productivity is not enough. It has to translate into, what does that business do? What does that business provide to its customers? Or how does it make its money? What's its value? How does productivity relate to getting more of that? It could be converting your B players and A players, or it could be about just the quality of work. Again, with AI, things get faster, but they also get better. The quality and less mistakes and so on, or retention of employees. It costs a lot when people leave if they're happier in their job. So it's a matter with the buyer discovering the ROI that's not necessarily related just to that user experience. It's something that creates value to the entire company. Thirdly, the third constituent, sales. You have to realize we're not talking directly to customers anymore. We need to enable sales to talk to customers. So it's arming them with everything we know, and arming them with materials that can be easily accessed, and training them on these things so they can think on their feet. As well, it's helping them to decide what is the primary feature we're going to speak about based on pain points of customers. Segmenting the audience and finding feature A is better for this vertical or sector. Feature B is better for this one. And then how do we start with the messaging, way up the funnel, but then follow through with the same consistent messaging through the funnel? So it's a matter of you basically have multiple markets that you're going after. Again, it gets more complicated. Having a sales background, you understand that, but it's just a matter of being organized and making that transition. I'd say the hardest part is finding what is that measurable value that you give. And again, that just comes from understanding your customer.
For sure. Yeah. It's super interesting to think about those differences, but also it seems like there's a path to go from one to the other as well, from PLG to SLG as a company grows and scales. And I know that's something that you have a lot of experience with, not just the PLG side, but also making that transition from one to the other. And, when I first, we were first talking, and I saw it on your LinkedIn profile as well, you had built LogMeIn free to 22 million users to 100 million in revenue. So my first question was, why stop, right? Why stop something that's working so well and shift and pivot to a sales-led motion? So that's my first question, is like, why make that pivot when it seems like you're having so much success? And then the other side of the coin is, um, when do you decide to do that? Like, what are the signs or what are the moments in time in a company's evolution that it makes sense to start thinking about making that shift? And then finally, how do you do that, right? Because as you said, there are differences between the two motions, right? In
Yeah.
terms of the mindset, but also the stakeholders that you're dealing with and the type of information that you have to produce and share. So I know that's a bunch to throw at you, but
Yeah, no.
sort of like tell us a little bit about that transition, when it happens and why it happens and how it happens.
Yeah. I think one of the things to think of is when you're doing product led growth, you're mostly talking to individuals and the individual usage. You can then notice that companies can use your product. You can have a collection of individuals using a product within a company. That's the way LogMeIn worked. It's, you name it, Dropbox, Grammarly, all these companies, they have the ability to service an individual as a collection of individuals with a company and do something great. When you see that your product's being used that way, you realize we can take, lengthen the sales cycle, but we can increase the value of the transactions tremendously. And we already have the recognition within a company. Making that leap is about, and one of the other things to realize is you don't have to change much about the product features. What it is the three big things you're going to worry about are security and security and security. Making this so that the systems administrators, the CISO, whoever's going to be rolling this out and managing it, has this feeling that I've taken all these individual licenses, I've put them all under one umbrella. It's secure. I can provision. I've disabled that shadow IT that this company with its product-led growth had developed. And now I can apply what I need without it disrupting the productivity these things provide. That's usually the process of going from product led to sales led, is that realization that your product can be purchased by organizations. One way I explain it about you don't need many features is if you own a car dealership and you're selling really nice BMWs, and you have individuals who are buying it, they love the product, or love the car, then you're selling to a bank or a brokerage firm and they're going to buy 100, the fleet of cars. It's the same car. It's just the buying terms, the value, and a lot of other things in the process are different, but the car itself is the same. So it's a matter of finding that the market can have that. One thing to what we did at LogMeIn actually when we went from free to pro was the way we went, but then going into enterprise was we realized we were making enemies within the enterprise because of this shadow IT we were forming, and we thought we can actually solve that problem and increase the transaction size and increase getting into the enterprise and having more rollout by helping the systems administrators and CISO understand, find the product, and convert it. We created something called Central. At first, we created something called Scout, which scoured your network and found all the instances of LogMeIn Free and Pro. And we first told some sysadmins about that. They're like, "Thank you, this is great. Now I'm going to disable all of them." We thought, oh well, that backfired, but it didn't really, because we became friendly with the people who are the buyers and the decision makers in these companies. And when they saw, look, we were willing to help them, we then created something more robust called Central, which allowed customers to bring in all the free and pro into one umbrella, provision it, put a bunch of layers of security and reporting on it, be able to access computers so that users can access their own work, admins can access to fix. And we also allowed that the free product and the pro product can be interchanged easily between users, because we knew people were doing that anyway. So why not just make it easy and be on their side? Then mostly people would convert to the pro version. We then got rid of free. We thought, this is great. We have it. It's worked. It's got us on the map. But we thought as we went from PLG to the SLG, the land and expand model was working, where we have a few people using it. We're able to connect with the sysadmins. We're able to meet all the security criteria and have this being rolled out. So free became something that we wanted to get away from creating the shadow IT. We wanted to make the conversations with enterprise more deliberate. And we also had such a massive base that there were very few people at the time who hadn't heard or used LogMeIn. One of the great things about PLG and SLG, where you start, if you start with PLG and go to SLG or the reverse, Again, always making sure that if the product is used by individuals, it has to be easy to understand and adopt. And that's where it's a super benefit going from PLG to SLG, because one lends itself to the other just naturally. Starting with a complex B2B product, you got to make sure that the rollout, you have to treat those individuals who are going to adopt it as individuals who need to have an aha moment. And you really need to build that in, because you're also going to get on the side of, this is the person, the buyer, who's going to be rolling this out. Because once they agree with everything, the demos are great, the user groups have said yes, everyone signed off on it, then you start rolling it out. If it doesn't get adopted, then everyone will wonder, what was this buyer's decision? So being able to have a product-led mentality with your features when you're rolling them out is super important to any kind of sales-led stuff. I think that gets to most of the questions that you had, but feel free if I missed any to.
No, it makes total sense. And it's clear that you guys at LogMeIn did an amazing job. It's probably one of the best case studies I've heard, right? In terms of going from like really just getting a lockdown PLG emotion that's working to get that awareness, to build that brand awareness and that base of customers that then you can transition into a sales-led growth motion and sort of take advantage of those pockets of adoption that you have within an organization to create sort of a broader contract size, but also sort of like single point of contact right now and the easier to manage set of accounts. The only other company, I mean, I'm sure there are tons of examples out there, but the one that came to mind as you were talking that I've heard about is Slack, right? Where I heard early on within organizations, you'd have small teams adopting them, but then you'd have within large organizations, little pockets of users with their own sort of like Slack accounts, right? And they did a really good job at building awareness, building adoption in these pockets, and then using that as as sort of like a stepping stool to then go to the head of IT and sort of point out, hey, you have all these implementations of Slack within your organization. Number one, you're not taking advantage of cost benefits of, a single instance, but also here are the security issues with doing it this way, right? You're missing out on collaboration issues between teams. There's these silos of conversation. So they did a really good job at sort of positioning why a enterprise implementation is a benefit, right? So it makes total sense, I think, both from a, strategy perspective in terms of building out your own revenue base and so on, but also for the buyer as well, right? Why they would want to look at an enterprise implementation at some point.
Absolutely. One of the benefits that, we had Join Me we had a screen sharing product at LogMeIn that we launched later on. That was towards the end of my career there. We wanted to get to the aha moment the fastest as possible. And we had this one-click screen sharing that you would literally go to join.me, click on share, and you're sharing your screen. And you can then just invite people. You didn't even have to register. And we had we outdid our goals by, I think it was like 800% the first 3 months. But we didn't ask for registration. And then we had to go back and do it as we went from this individual screen sharing app to then a cloud-based collaboration tool for enterprise. We had to get people to now integrate in. One of the ways we did that is to gradually get people in, they're excited about the product, and then say, okay, please give us your email to continue. And then more and more people will get in. But the value where Slack and Join Me and other even 8x8 meeting products is that you always have the user who knows about it, but then they invite people to it. With Slack, it's like, you have to have Slack for me to communicate with you. So now you're like, wow, this thing's awesome. How do we do this? Let's get more people involved. If you can ever go towards getting your product to have that user get user, not as a marketing feature, just as that's the way the product works, that's where you should very quickly go in from product-led into sales-led and enterprise, because it will work. And it's just a matter of getting enough people interested, understanding them, and having those two segments, having the individuals and enterprise. But anything that people have where they feel getting people to use the product enhances your experience, it's a great opportunity to get into bigger contract size and getting into the organizations. Again, it just comes down to how can you lock it up so that you have a single point of contact, single point of security, and be able to provision things out. But it's, I was excited. Slack was an amazing story on how they grew.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so much there. We could go on forever, but
Yeah.
one question I really wanted to ask you is
Yeah.
clearly you've had a lot of experience in product marketing. You've seen the
Mm.
role
Yeah.
evolve, right, over the
Mm.
last 2 decades, let's say,
Yeah.
right? What does the future of product marketing look like, right? You know, what does the next decade? There's so many different things that are happening now with AI and all these different things that are coming to the table. I'm curious what your perspective is like on what does the next decade, what does product marketing look like a decade from now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, as you know, we've gone through several sort of cycles where product marketing with cloud solutions, it took on, as more and more companies, cloud became a big thing. LogMeIn being in the cloud and so on, and this software as a service, you had this revolutionary change, and that's what product-led growth came out of. Then it got kind of evolutionary. They were all doing the same thing. We were starting to build more competitors come in, and it became differentiation. You understand what we do, but we do it better than our competitor because of this. Then it became that. Then we hit a second revolutionary stage, which was AI. But even now, because the adoption has been so great and the number of companies utilizing this, it's now again getting more evolutionary in that you are you're building on what you do, which is very similar to other people, but you're going to have to find these differentiators as to why you're better. And then within the markets, as more and more people are going towards enterprise, the reason being, like I said, if your product is for individuals, that doesn't limit it to not being enterprise. So there's this big move, it's accelerating very quickly towards enterprise, which means not only do you have to differentiate from the others, is the segmentation, having multiple ICPs, having multiple product differences that can be highlighted. And it's almost about just getting niche and segmented. You could either go niche by we just address this one market, or get segmented by it's a big market, but we're going to have a sales team on this vertical or this pain point. We're going to have the product marketers support them. Then we'll have product marketers that just support this feature and pain point, all the way through, starting at the top of funnel, all the way to closing a deal with that buyer, and getting more into buyer messaging and user messaging, making sure users can use the product, but buyers understand the value. I also see, as this momentum towards enterprise happens, is looking at your current customers, keeping them. When you're launching new products and new features, the people it's going to affect most are your current enterprise customers. And it'll affect them drastically if they don't know that a change is coming, an update to a feature, that you decide the print button's not going to be on this page anymore. It's going to be on another one or under another sleeve or another heading. It makes sense because of something we're going to do, 2 cycles from now. You remove that print button and then you roll it out, and suddenly all your customers are like, you broke the product. It's done. It's gone. I can't use it anymore. They freak out. That's avoiding that situation for the sake of they might not leave your product, but you're going to make that buyer and the sysadmin's life absolute hell, because you're just going to be dealing with this fire drill. Making sure that keeping customers involved in the process of updates is going to become more important than looking at the market of who your customers can be and servicing them. Because the other thing, when you update a feature and you do a press release, hey, we've updated this feature, it now does this. To someone who hasn't used your product, it's not an update. It's not a new feature. Right. It's a feature. It's great to have that vision going forward, but I think focusing a lot of the roadmap efforts and a lot of the involvement of customers on your current base is going to really solidify that, especially because contracts are getting much bigger. The ability to get out of them might grow, but you need to really figure out a way to create partnerships with those customers. This may mean that you're going to have to segment the product marketing team into various parts. I think that you have to do that so that you have an SME of this particular industry, this particular pain point that your product serves. This one is for customers you currently have. This one is for land and expand. And almost having also that secondary funnel of we're going to land a deal, then we're going to expand it. So the account management side and working with working with the salespeople as product marketers to make sure that account management collateral and messaging, something that happens 6 months down the road, or how do you roll it out, has a big emphasis. So it's really about this deeper segmentation And focusing, of course, it's gone. You watch this evolution from features. No, don't talk about those. Talk about benefits. Now it's outcomes. And there's going to be measurable value, which really is not about your product. And I think lastly, if I say it becomes, you have to get this, what does our product do? And what are the features to just, what do our customers need? How do they use it? How do we capitalize on that? We're not building this for us. We're building it for them. And it has to get more and more that way. Inside out thinking. Why does a product function this way? Well, our architecture is that. Well, that's an inside problem. If it hinders the use of the product, then you got to start looking at how customers use things, and functioning on workflows. How does interact with other products out there? Because you might solve one thing, which is great, but the process you're solving is this big and it involves a few other products. So making sure that you play nice with all of those, form, alliances or just, integrations is going to be super important. I said a lot of things there.
A lot, as I said, there's so much to discuss here, and each one of those things I'd love to unpack. So maybe we'll have to have you on a future episode again as we see product marketing evolve over the next couple of years, to get your take on where things are going. But again, so great chatting with you. So, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. If folks want to continue to follow you and learn from you, where's the best place for them to find you, or if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to get me. And I believe I even have my personal email address out there. But yeah, LinkedIn, just connect with me there, send me an email. You can find me. I just realized I didn't actually put up my last name on the thing. Jotting this down now. So my full name.
Jamieson Wright. There we go.
Oh, it's backwards too. But Wright is the last name. W-R-I-G-H-T. But yeah, please find me on LinkedIn. I am happy to just talk about the stuff like we were saying about talking about asset when we first started. I just love talking about this stuff. I'm like it just exercises the muscle, and you just learn so much more about cool new products, which I think asset new, by the way, it's a cool new product. But yeah, so that my email address, Jamieson.Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T @gmail.com. Great way to do it as well. I don't mind getting a lot of emails.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for the time today, and have a good day over there.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.